Okay guys, so without further ado, let's continue our narrative about the birth of NI dominance, how NI dominance becomes a thing in the life of the child. As I explained in the video yesterday, I actually believe that at this point, I'm pretty sure that that our type is mostly nurture and only a small contribution from nature. But that contribution from nature is still important. It's just that it's not direct, but rather indirect, right? And I may as well say it because I already hinted at it in the video yesterday. The reason why nature contributes indirectly is that it contributes by endowing the child with a particular temperament and sensitivity to external stimuli and what happens around him or her, okay? Some children are born and they seem kind of peaceful and quiet and relaxed, and other children cry easily, are easily distressed, need a lot of soothing, reassurance. And it's true with those children, it's more difficult to develop, for example, a secure attachment connection with a primary caregiver and other caregivers. Secure attachment is not just a matter of nurture, it's also a matter of nature. Children that are born with these kinds of temperaments will, in a way, it will require a higher feat on the part of the parents to weave a link of attachment that is secure, because these children are more easily upset, more easily terrified or distressed, okay? And we assume in this case that, and that's the part of the genetic endowment, we inherit these dispositions to react to anxiety in certain ways. And I'm saying that the temperament of the soon to become NI dominant child is more sensitive, more brittle, and more reactive to external stimuli than other children. So that's the contribution of nature, but I would suggest that it's only about 20% of the picture, and the rest is done by nurture and only by nurture. So we talked about the trauma of birth. Why is the trauma of birth a specifically unique experience for NI dominance, soon to become NI dominance children? All right, the child who will become an NI dominance. I will just say the NI child. It's an easier way to put it. Otherwise, it's just me constantly repeating the same phrase. Okay. Well, for different reasons. First of all, again, we've talked about a child who genetically inherited a temperament that is sensitive. So trauma of birth will be felt intensely. Exposure to loud noises, exposure to blinding lights, harsh sounds, strange tastes, okay? Rough like surfaces for the sense of touch. Happens in all children. Very difficult for the NI child. But also a temperament that just finds it very difficult to be suddenly separated from the paradise of the womb. As I explained before, we have this combo of an innately sensitive nature of the child mixed with the sudden expulsion, being expelled, being sent away, rejected in a way, right? It's going to be felt at that in part by the paradisal world inside the mother, inside the womb. The bond was so strong, the bond was so powerful. The border, what I called the boundary between child's unconscious and mother's unconscious, extremely porous, more porous than average, even though there is always a dimension of porosity. We know this because we know we can inherit our parents' anxieties, including primal and primordial anxieties that our parents have. We can inherit them through the communication between their unconscious and our unconscious. Nothing happens through speech sometimes. It's all just a matter of communication between the unconscious of the mother and the unconscious of the very young infant. So extreme porosity. Now, you get separation, right? There is this first cut, the cut in the womb. The child is thrown out. Now, it's very painful for the child. What is it like for the mother? Of course, there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of elation. It's like the greatest moment of the mother's life. That's all true, and there's no denying that. That happens in consciousness and is not incompatible. That might be something that you'll find controversial, but I don't think it is. This is not incompatible with a more unconscious sense of guilt that the mother experiences at the fact that she let go of her baby in a way, put him in the world and no longer inside her. That's even more so going to be the case if the bond was so strong and if the boundary was so porous. It's not just the child that was, so to speak, benefiting from this closeness. It's also the mother who was benefiting from it. And the mother is going to feel a certain sense of guilt. At that point, the mother is capable of feeling guilt. The just newborn infant, of course, is not capable of feeling guilt. That will be for later. However, and this is a point that I have not made before, it's an original point, and it's a point that I don't think has ever been made in the history of discussions around personality types. So this is a first, okay, and I can't wait to hear what you think of this intuition. The porosity between the child's unconscious and the mother's unconscious is such, and the mother's unconscious guilt is such, that the guilt is transferred to the child. The guilt is going to make its way into the child's unconscious. It will remain, the straightforward guilty side will remain inactive until a little bit later on in our story. However, it will have an impact in terms of making the world even more hostile to the NI child, right? Inheriting this weird guilt from his mother and not knowing what to do with it. It will also affect his self-esteem. Self-esteem starts from, probably starts in intrauterine life, if we're honest. But if we're more conservative, it starts from, day one that you're born. And imagine that you unconsciously inherit the guilt of your mother. That's gonna create self-esteem issues. And these self-esteem issues are going to be important because when we get a little bit later on to the phase of, if you like, the phase of fusion with the mother, the infant at the breast, okay, trying to recreate the ideal conditions of back when they were inside the womb, trying everything they can to recreate those ideal conditions and never quite getting there, experiencing frustrations. Inside the womb, that's a life without frustrations. And the NI child, in this case, wants this world without frustrations. They experience frustrations, okay? Now, at some point, the mother wants to create a bit more distance between her and the child. That's also because she knows that it needs to be done in order to facilitate the possibility for the child to become more resilient, okay? We're still in the first year of life. Now, the child is going to experience a very mixed feelings. I've talked about this in my videos on the various fantasies associated with dominant functions. But there's going to be a strong ambivalence of feelings between loving this mother who's still very much the idealized object of their love and hating her for not always being around for them, frustrating them. There's also going to be something that happens, always, but is very powerful in the case of the NI child, is envy. I talked about envy. The child idealizes the breast. The mother is not completely understood as a full human being at that point. The child's not cognitively capable of that or emotionally or psychologically capable of that. The mother is a breast. The breast is idealized, but the child comes to compare himself to this idealized breast and be envious of this idealized breast. The envy can be more moderate or it can be very powerful. Why is it powerful in the case of the NI child? Because their self-esteem was low to begin with. You remember the trauma of birth? It's all starting to make sense. So the envy is more powerful, and therefore the fantasized attacks on the breast, the damaging of the breast that's done by way of fantasized envious spoiling of the breast, are powerful as well, and the breast is essentially put in bits. NI children, I think, properly shatter the breast, destroy the breast, cut it into bits. Cut it into bits. And Melanie Klein talks about this. This is not just my imagination. Okay, guys? Now imagine what the desire for reparation is going to be. Very powerful indeed. And we'll continue this story in the next episode. Don't forget my Patreon page, guys. It's the first link below. I would be so grateful if you consider supporting me for a month or a year. A year is even better because it's more sustainable from my point of view, and it's not more expensive for you. It's like for a whole year, it's like $40 or something like that, or 40 euros. It's really not that much, only a few euros a month if you decide to support monthly. It helps me massively. I could not do this work without you guys, so I'd be so appreciative. You get massive perks as well, like access to our Discord server and the massive library of deep dives that I record every 2 weeks for the patrons. The patrons are big fans of this perk, so I recommend this. And don't forget about my 2 books, The Infinite Soul and the Ecstatic Soul on the inner life of the INFJ, and that's the Ecstatic Soul, and the Infinite Soul on the external life of the INFJ life in the world. Okay, you need these books if you understand the INFJ type better. Thank you very much, and see you soon.